So my name is Dave Marazzo. See, she thought I was going to forget. I made the 44th Men's Curcio in 1988. I sat at St. John's table and I belonged to St. Joseph's Parish in Mechanicsburg, the father parish of the West Shore. So the Royo that I'm doing is I was really happy when I saw what the topic was. They call it the preliminary Royo. We always call it the opening talk for the rectora, and it happens to be my favorite Royo of the entire weekend, because it just has a powerful punch. But, before I get into that, I just want to say that how much I truly love Curcio. I mean, I truly love Curcio, even with all the things that happen, and I love Curcio. And I love the people in Curcio. And I thank God that my dad sponsored me for Curcio. And today is the 2-year anniversary of my dad's death. No, that's a good thing. I know where he's at. I know where he's at. And just it's an honor to be up here because I wouldn't be here without him. And I think sometimes we tend to forget the importance of Curcio. Just to kind of give you an example, before I came here, my wife and I went to vote. So I'm in the booth voting. My wife went in after I did. She got done before I did. I'm still voting, and she's out talking to some guy, But I hear her say, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I knew right away who she was talking to. There was a email that went out on the Curcio prayer chain to pray for a lady who was hit by a U-Haul truck going 60 miles an hour. My wife she didn't see the accident happen, but she got there right after it happened. And she said, whoever was in that car probably didn't make it, it was that bad of an accident. Well, this was her husband that my wife was talking to, and I told him, I would pray for him. And we tend to forget, that's really why we're here, I didn't know them personally, but how many people do we run into in our daily lives that God puts in our past that we can make a difference in their lives? And Curcio is by far the best tool to do that. That's what Curcio is all about. And we need to keep our focus on that. Plain and simple. We just need to keep our focus on that. So I'm here to talk about the preliminary Royo. And before I get into that, I just want to get into the atmosphere on Thursday. We all know what it's like. It's especially, depending on where it's at, especially if it's a pious, it's very hectic because it's all set up and preparing. And the kitchen crew's getting the meals ready. Mass is at 4:00. You go right into the mass. And then you start the team meeting. And what happens before the end of the team meeting? It happens every single weekend. The candidates start showing up early. Okay.
Yeah.
Puppers go and they start carrying suitcases, and then the meeting kind of goes by the wayside, right? And it's all hectic. And then the opening Royo happens. And it just goes, everyone's zoomed in. They start focusing on what they're supposed to be focusing on, and it just drives home why we're there. And so I love Royo, and I love what it says in the book here about this Royo. It actually says that this Royo, and that's the only time I've seen it, they say it's of supreme importance. Supreme importance, because it truly sets the tone for the entire weekend. Okay. So if you're a rectora or a rector and you're going to give this Royo, take time and prepare for it. Know it inside and out. I've done it 3 or 4 times. The last time I did it, I actually memorized the whole thing, because it is that important. And there are, what's really cool, and I didn't understand that until I actually read this, is that there are objectives in the talk, and there are actually hidden objectives in the talk. Did you guys know that there are hidden objectives in the talk? There are hidden objectives in the talk. It's pretty cool, So So when these people come, we sit down and we do the, oh, no, let me back up. So the Royo is really important. They say that the rector, rectora can't be kind of wishy-washy. They have to be very, committed and strong with the Royo, because what they say in here is that if you're kind of wishy-washy, then the candidates are going to take it that it's going to be something easy and nonchalant, and they're not going to put their whole heart into it. So you really have to exert yourself, in this Royo. And everyone who does it, they'll exert it if it comes from the heart. And everyone that's working the weekends, it all comes from the heart. So it's really, really, really important that you be strong and decisive. And one thing I do want to say is, we all know that the Cursillo Royos, they build on top of each other. This one's separate because the whole weekend is built on this opening Royo. Okay? So this is one Royo you do not want to deviate from. Because I've seen it on weekends where, someone will try to make it their own. They'll maybe not use the tractor story, and they'll use their own version, which a lot of times is bad. Stick to the script on this one. Stick to the script, and don't deviate. And sometimes we kind of, all of us who have given Roys, you kind of get this thing inside of you, like you just want to give it to everybody like all at once. Okay. That's not Cursillo. That's not the way it operates. It all builds, on top of, every dog builds on top of the other. So we don't want to give them anything here. We just kind of want to whet their appetite, so to speak. That's one of the objectives of the Royo. Okay. So don't make it your own. Please just, follow the script. So the opening Royo starts with, answering questions that the candidates may have. Just think about back when you made your weekend. Someone's driving you to the weekend. Why can't I drive myself? What is this, a cult? Right? And then you get to the place and you arrive and you walk in, and then you got all these strangers running up, grabbing your bags. Wait a second, that's mine. Give me that bag. I'll carry it. No, we got this for you. So they're kind of apprehensive, and my son Nick, my wife sponsored him to make a weekend, and he was kind of like fighting it, the whole way up. He was like, well, what the heck is going on here? So people have questions naturally when they get there. So this Royo is a way to kind of relax them and kind of focus them in that, it's really not a cult. And it's great because in this talk, we tell them a lot of things, but we don't tell them anything. And that's the truth. So we're trying to, just kind of bring them down to earth, kind of relax them a little bit. We talk about Cursillo, what it means. We all remember that. I always loved writing Cursillo on the chalkboard, right? And it's funny because the Cursiestas never get it. I think probably the funniest name that one of the guys on the weekends ever came up with, he meant to call us Cursiestas. He called us Christianitos. I like that. Yeah, we're Christianitos, baby. Right? That was pretty funny. We're Christianitos. Then we get into the history of Cursillo. I don't need to get into all that for everyone, with the multiple founders and the whole bit. And we tell them that, Cursillo will provide them with practical solutions to their problems. And that comes through authentic happiness, which we know is, authentic joy and peace that can only come from Jesus Christ. And then we tell them that it's grace that operates on these weekends. It's nothing that we do. It's nothing that they deserve. It's a free gift that the Holy Spirit gives us. He gives us his grace. And that's why the Cursillo works. So we just kind of, whet their appetite with all that stuff. And, the hidden objective is actually to increase their curiosity or to increase, increase their curiosity about the weekend. It's to whet their appetite enough that they want more, if that makes sense. And I wrote down some of the things that I remember. I loved the opening talk when I made my weekend, and I loved it when I gave the Royos on the weekends. And some of the things that hit me, like one of the very first things, regardless of why you think you're here in this weekend, you may think it's your spouse or a friend or a coworker, a parishioner. No, God called you here. And all of a sudden they start thinking, this is starting to become real. Oh, God called me here. Whetting their appetite. Well, why did God call me here? That's the natural thing that why did God call me here, right? So I love that. And I also love when they talk about here, so what's the 3-day Cursillo going to be like for you? We can't answer that for you. Everybody experiences it differently. Once again, whetting their appetite, having them to want more, Love this line. I encourage you to take every moment as it comes. This is your Cursillo weekend and you only live it once. That's another, that kind of speaks to the importance of, why they're there, that something special is about to happen. And then the part, I love it, where it says, don't anticipate. Because when the candidates get there, they are anticipating. I remember thinking, okay, is this like a charismatic thing and I'm going to be laying on the floor passed out, or people are going to be laying their hands on me and I'm going to like this, So funny story about that. I was at a Medjugorje conference with my dad and my mom and my wife. And there was a guy there on the weekend, and he had this giant rosary. He had the rosary rocks, like the beads were like this big, and it was huge. All the rocks were from one of the mountains in Medjugorje, and he's praying over people, and they're dropping like rocks, no pun intended. And I get in line with my dad, and we look up, and my mom and my wife are on the ground. They're slaying in the spirit. And I looked at my dad and I said, "You're going down." And he looked at me and said, "I'm not going down, you're going down." And we're bantering back and forth as we get up, and we're getting up, and 3 people left, before we're up there. And the guy says, "Okay, we're done for the day." And I said, "It's a good thing, Dad, because you were going to go down." So, they don't know what to expect on these weekends. So when you say, look, don't anticipate anything, just wait and take it as it comes. And then we get into the tractor story or the dollhouse story. And I love the stories, with the crates and the boxes, and there's 5 crates, 5 boxes opened up every day, which represent the Royos, And then it just kind of settles them down to the point where they're now open. Okay. And then we hit them with the silent retreat. Okay. So that they can focus on themselves internally, give them the opportunity to go to confession and truly open up their hearts to God. That's basically all I have for you on the Royo. But I will say this. This Royo, everything that you tell them in that Royo, as you go through step by step in this whole thing, it's exactly what happens at the end of the weekend. I remember one weekend I was rector, and I had this whole Royo written on the total security Royo, about grouping and on all this stuff. And I'm down in the Palanca Chapel, and I'm praying before I went to do that. And Jesus had me rip up the entire speech. And he just told me, this is what I want you to do. So I went up and I used the whiteboard and I went through the opening talk. I told you this on the weekend. I told you this at the opening talk, right? Yep. Was it true? Yep. Checked it off. I went down through the opening talk, just point by point. And when I got to the end, I said, now, you have to trust that I'm telling you the truth when I talk to you about grouping and the importance of it, So this Royo starts the whole weekend off. And if you do this right, the rest of the weekend will flow smoothly. Okay. So one thing I want to leave you with. Why do we say amen instead of a woman at church? Because we sing hymns, not hers. Thank Dolores.